Alright, so this is my genogram that I created. So I did it of 3 generations. On the left is my paternal grandparents, and on the right is the maternal. So my mom's side is on the right and my dad's side is on the left. And then we have my parents right here, me, and these are all my siblings. So we will start on the left with my grandparents on my dad's side. So this is my grandpa and grandma Meeks. They were married in 1957, and they were married until my grandfather passed away, and he passed away back in 2007. And I always knew that he died from suicide. He ended his own life, but I didn't know why until I was able to interview my dad about it. And it was mainly because he suffered from Alzheimer's, and he basically didn't know what was going on around him, and so he committed suicide, sadly. And my grandma Meeks on the right, she died just last year, just from old age. She was really weak, but they both grew up LDS, and they actually grew up and raised their family for part of the time up in Canada. But my grandpa's, his family is mainly English, and on my grandma's side they have a long generations of French Canadians. And over here on my mom's side, so my mom's side is a bit complicated. There's a lot of dysfunction with my grandparents on that side. Growing up, I never really had a relationship with my grandfather. He was a really interesting person, but he married my grandma in 1954, and they divorced in 1975. My grandpa, he had a few affairs actually, and it was probably the main reason of their divorce and separation. As you can see, this represents a divorce, and this represents abuse. And I did the big squiggly line because there was both emotional and physical abuse going on. And my grandma was Danish, or her mom was Danish, and her grandma was too. And she died of a heart attack just recently, back in December. So that's my grandparents on my mom's side. And then we go down here, and this is my father. He was born in 1961 to my mother in 1984, and that's my mom. So my parents ended up getting divorced back in 2004, and their relationship was really complicated and dysfunctional as well. This line represents distrust, and that's what I thought was most fitting from this legend, was because there was a lot of issues going on in their relationship, which caused a loss of trust between them. And then I added this one too because I felt it was needed. This is emotional abuse. There was a lot of that on both sides as well, sadly. Luckily I was really young during this time, so I don't remember a lot of it going on, but after interviewing my dad about it, he was able to talk about some details, so I learned a lot about that. This right here, this represents the half circle drug addiction, or substance abuse or drug addiction. So I wrote that down right here, and my mom struggled for years with drug addiction, and she was in and out of rehab for several years. And I know that her father struggled with substance abuse and addiction as well, so I know that definitely was transmitted down to her and possibly some of her siblings. And so my mom had 3 sisters and 2 brothers, and only one of those siblings got divorced. So I guess, her and another sibling, and so you can see that divorce from their parents carried on to 2 of their kids. Over here, my dad came from a really big family. He had 5 sisters and 2 brothers, and one of his brothers passed away when he was about 2 years old, and he was from a physical illness. It was undiagnosed at the time, but it was similar to muscular dystrophy. He wasn't able to grow like he should have, and so he passed away when he was 2 years old. 2 of my aunts got a divorce, and there was an affair here with this marriage, and my uncle and the other aunts are still married. So I forgot to mention this represents a loving relation, in love. So every time I saw my grandparents together, you could tell they were in love, and they showed that by their actions, and so that really set an example for me. And we'll go on to my generation. This is me right here. I have 3 sisters, so all girls. 2 of my sisters are married. This is my brother-in-law, and I have 1 niece. And they're in love, they're going strong, and this is my other sister. And she got married. I did forget to mention, up here my mom got her bachelor's in psychology at ASU, and so I made sure to mark everyone's educational attainment. So my brother-in-law has his bachelor's, and my sister almost has her doctorate degree, and all 3 of us are working on our bachelor's still, including my brother-in-law. So I think that education is so important, and our mom set a great example for us by getting her bachelor's despite having a family. My mom also had 2 miscarriages in between the time of having me and my youngest sister, and we have a dog, so I had to add my little dog on there. She's part of the family. But that's basically it, and we have the keys down here, the legends. But I really did learn a lot from this assignment, and I was able to see trends of divorce and abuse and addictions, and it really shows that the way you were raised and the home that my mom was raised in really affected her as a person. Her father was abusive to all of them, emotionally and physically, and I know that my mom coped with that problem in her life with substance abuse, with drug addiction, and I know that all of her siblings suffered from substance abuse, not as much as her, because she struggled with it for many years, but they all coped with this dysfunction, either drinking or using drugs. And on the other side, because my grandparents on my dad's side had a functional and loving relationship, a lot of these relationships, from what I've seen and heard, have been really loving and have lasted many years. Even though there was a divorce, they lasted over 20 years. And I believe that it was because of the example that was set by them, by their parents, that they were able to see what a loving and functional marriage looked like, despite having issues. And one thing that I learned from doing this is that there are certain trends like abuse, distrust, divorce, addiction that I want to end in my generation. And my goal is to not get divorced. My goal is to never become addicted to anything. And I want to treat my family with respect and love, and not have this be between my future husband and me and kids. And I want a lot of kids. I want a big family, and I want a lot of happy symbols and successes like doctorate degrees or bachelor degrees or traveled the world or whatever it may be. But it was really eye-opening to see the trends in my genogram and see where certain trends followed and other ones didn't. So it really is generational, and if you are able to map out both your family history and the emotional relationships and functions, you're able to see how it can end with your generation or how you can change it. So I really did learn a lot by doing this, and I look forward to adding more on this, and I want to keep this genogram. I don't want to throw it away, and I want to hopefully get married one day and have my own kids and keep adding to it. So thank you.